Hey guys, how's it going? It's Alex of coyotestarastrology, and I wanted to do a quick video for you guys about this Mercury retrograde cycle that we have coming in. We're actually in the pre-shadow right now. Mercury went into pre-shadow on February 19th, so some of these themes are already trickling in, and I think that that's why I'm doing this video a little bit early. I think that it's nice to start looking at what's coming up now, because these are the themes that we can see carry through when Mercury passes over this area of the chart during its retrograde cycle. So yeah, I wanted to do a video for you guys. Normally, I don't really even mention Mercury retrograde. I barely ever mention it in my forecasts, but there's a couple things about this one that make it special, we're gonna call it. So I wanted to make a little survival guide for you guys so you can go into it feeling prepared. So let's talk about why it's a weird transit. First and foremost, because Mercury is retrograding in the sign of Pisces. Now, Mercury is the messenger. He's our communication. He's also how we articulate and communicate with other people via writing, text, speaking, and it's our mind. It's the way that our mind works. It's our thoughts. Now, Pisces as a sign is a lot of beautiful things, but one thing Pisces is not is clear. Pisces is very ungrounded. Pisces is fantasy. It is the dreamer. It's our imagination. So Pisces can often have a hard time knowing what reality even is. Pisces can deceive itself during its pursuit of truth because it is literally swimming in the astral realm and in the collective consciousness. So you can see how, forget about retrograde for a second, but even just having Mercury in Pisces, it doesn't really like to be there. It gets confused there. And then when we have Mercury go into the underworld, when it retrogrades, anytime a planet goes retrograde, it's a time for reevaluation and rethinking and kind of second guessing whatever that planet governs. So with Mercury retrograding in Pisces, I think that our dreams are going to be on the chopping block somewhat, or up for evaluation or speculation. And this can be an uncomfortable process. It's never fun to have our dreams questioned because we like to feel confident about our dreams and we like to go for them with everything we've got. But during this transit, because it's happening in Pisces, there's going to be some area of our life that is going to be up for speculation regarding our overall vision and our imagination and how we think about it. So an example of this could be, you had this huge vision to go to school for something, and now you're in school and you're confused. Maybe this isn't what I wanted. Suddenly it's not as inspiring as I thought it was going to be. And I think that this is a process that any artist goes through. Pisces is the creative. So, imagine if you had been a watercolor painter for 25 years and it had been very inspiring and you were a master of it and this had been your life's passion. But in any artist's life, at some point, there's often these times when suddenly something that was working before seems bland or outdated, or it's no longer inspiring. And then the artist hits a block. They have to dive really deep within themselves, transform something, come up with something new, and then they burst through a better artist than before. But that process can be really, really uncomfortable. It can be scary to have our dreams questioned. We can feel lost. Pisces, when it's at detriment, is feeling lost, feeling spiritually lost, feeling unclear, ungrounded, confused. It's sort of the forgotten by God syndrome. So I think the first thing we want to consider when we're going into this transit is that Mercury retrograde is traditionally not a time to make big decisions or sign contracts or make commitments. So one of the first ways we can prepare for this transit is to go into it knowing whatever comes up in my subconscious, whatever fears come up or whatever confusion arises, I don't have to act on it. I don't have to even talk about it. I can just go into my spiritual practice. Pisces is our spirituality. I can find my inner stillness and I can just be the observer, remain objective, and stay calm while we're sort of adrift in these semi-stormy seas. Speaking of The other thing that makes this transit interesting is that Mercury will pass the planet Neptune in its home sign of Pisces twice. This is going to happen towards the end of the transit. So it's going to make its first pass on March 24th, and then it's going to literally station direct on March 28th, and then pass by Neptune again in its direct course on April 2nd. So the end of this transit is actually probably the most intense during that time period. But Neptune being where things are very formless, and it is our imagination and it is fantasy, which is beautiful when you're creating a piece of art or creating a beautiful experience. But when you have Mercury retrograding past that, you can see how this can create even more confusion. And I think altogether this transit is going to be a time when we aren't sure what's real and what's not. Reality is going to become a bit blurred. So I think another thing to remember is that things may not be as good or as bad as they seem. So once again, not really feeling like we need to act on it, not needing to feel like we need to attach to it too much, but just remember that when Mercury goes into the underworld, we are dealing with our subconscious. So whatever's being stirred up may just be subconscious fears that are playing out on the play of the world for us to go through, evolve, and learn from. Another thing I want to mention is that Pisces rules psychedelics, psychoactive substances, it rules alcohol. So people that are already sensitive to substances, you know, a lot of people with a Pisces rising tend to be more sensitive to things like this. It may be a time when we all want to stay really sober and grounded, because I think things are going to be weird enough already, and why confuse ourselves even more? So I think the more we can stay clear, the better. Deception can definitely come up with transits to Neptune, and when we're dealing with Pisces, Pisces often deceives itself. You know, Pisces is the acid trip. It's the wild ride through the cosmos, and when we come back to Earth, sometimes things aren't exactly what we thought they were. So deception can come up during this transit. We can suddenly wonder if we've deceived ourselves into thinking that something was better than it was, and now we're feeling lost and adrift at sea. Again, staying grounded, recognizing that this transit isn't very long, it's going to pass, and when it goes direct, we can really see the karmic outcome and the real lesson behind everything. But while it's retrograde, not so much. We're just sort of at the will of the planets and the dance that they happen to be doing at the moment. What else? Oh yeah, so this transit is also going to be squaring Jupiter and Sagittarius. And Jupiter in Sag wants the truth. It wants the highest truth. It wants to know where it's going, and it wants to know that where it's going is authentic. So there's going to be a part of us that is really, really yearning for expansion in the direction of truth, but also sort of being at the will during that time of some mental confusion because of the Mercury in Pisces. So that's another aspect of this transit that is a little bit difficult when it comes to knowing exactly what to do or what to think about a situation. I think really remaining non-reactive and remembering that this is a spiritual quest, because we're talking about Pisces, and whatever area of your chart that Mercury and Neptune are doing their little dance, this is the part of your chart that is in the underworld. This is the part of your chart that is going to be experiencing this confusion. And it's going to be hard to see clearly for the month of March exactly what's going on. So the last bit of advice I want to give about this transit is to definitely get a reading, because if we do a reading, we can look at your chart and we can look at exactly what area of your chart this is happening in, and we can discuss what's coming up that's unsettling, and we can look at where Jupiter is, and we can sort of get a clearer view of what's going on. So yeah. Once again, we're in shadow now. Shadow period started on the 19th of February, and we're preparing for Mercury to slow down next week, where it's going to station retrograde on March 5th. Then it's going to travel its retrograde course until the 28th, and then go direct again. and the Neptune passes will happen towards the end of that transit. So that's when things are definitely going to get interesting. And I don't want to project that it's all going to be bad, because you know, we are talking about Neptune and Pisces, and there can be a lot of mystical stuff coming up during this time. But yeah, I would just be careful, beware of false gurus. Again, it is kind of a spiritual quest. I think it's going to be an interesting time for the spiritual community. It's definitely going to be an interesting time for politics. So even with that stuff, politics, etc., don't believe everything you hear during this transit, because there's going to be some trickery going on, I think. And not a time to, I don't know, beware of false gurus in the spiritual community too, because it's definitely a time where Mercury's kind of being, he's the little trickster. He's running around in the astral realm, and I don't know if it's the time to sign up for that retreat with that guru or whatever. Like, it's definitely probably a time to do some grounding work ourselves so that we can get really clear on where we're going. I hope that helps, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and a share. And once again, I'll put my email down below if you want to reach out to me for a natal chart reading. And if you have enjoyed the music in the background of this video, this music has been brought to you by Ascendant. And as always, I will put their track listing down below as well. All right, you guys, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.